this last month in reference to that comment that I made the last time we were on. And so I chose to go over it a little bit and actually continue part of a conversation I was actually having with a neighbor, a couple of actually three neighbors of mine, who one who brought it up, and a Chinese brother who brought it up, and an Asiatic across the street, and we had a quite a little bit of conversation because the principal culture is pretty much universal among Asiatic peoples. And so we had a lot in common as far as that was concerned. But the question was, how does it apply and in our everyday lives? And so I told him, take a metaphysical analysis of chapter one, because people's concepts of what they think religion is, number one, we all know for the masses, and this is redundant, that the masses in general don't get religion, they get dogmata, or they get what you call a structured club type philosophy using some scriptures of choice for the purpose of more or less mind control and social solid systems. But I prefer to look at all the holy books as philosophical and metaphysical tools, actually, which they actually absolutely are. And when you do a little research, you begin to recognize that most of the priesthood, when using these books in the what you call everyday affairs of people, of man, most of the time their motive is financial and clubism, and not actual spiritual or metaphysical distribution of knowledge, or Gnostics knowledge that deals with the divine laws of nature, whereas people would begin to have a cognizance and a capacity to study upon their own and solve many of their own questions and problems on their own. In other words, most of the priesthood do not make the effort to aid or just to share and support the people in such manners that they are liberated from their clubs that are usually financial platforms for the priest and not really spiritual platforms, because you all know, those of you who are scholars and true religionists know that spirituality deals only with breath and breathing techniques more akin to yoga, and then the philosophies of the hermetic principles or the phenomena that operate in the universe, and particularly on Midgard, Earth, are Gnostic philosophies from the ancient Sabian Moors, etc., from which religion comes, and of course cosmology. So I want to share with you chapter one, and for those of you who have a Circle 7 Quran, pull out your Circle 7 Quran and go into it and recognize the universal character of the philosophies, and also recognize that there's what it's called the creation and fall of man. When you really analyze it, it is actually giving you sort of like a short story form blueprint of our walk on the planet, being man or the manifest, etc., as well as a general insight or intuitive insight on the destiny of man in many ways. And so it would give some supports to people who would take different positions or analysis on our everyday life activities, whether educational, political, what we would call spiritual, religious, etc. And I trust it would be helpful to many who may look at the book only from a surface perspective and not necessarily look at it with all of the senses. And so we're going to share We're going to take a metaphysical analysis of chapter 1 of the Circle 7 Quran, the creation and fall of man. And some of you take notes, and some of this you can share with other people, and also analyze it yourself and look at it from other perspectives. And I'm sure that you'll get and find so many jewels within the chapter. And so I'll share by reading chapter 1. And this comes from the Holy Quran of the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, divinely prepared by the noble prophet, noble Ali, by the guiding of his father, God Allah, the great God of the universe, to redeem man from his sinful and fallen stage of humanity back to the highest plane of life with his father, God Allah. And I would want to read also in the back cover of the prepared literature, the fallen sons and daughters of the Asiatic nation of North America need to learn to love instead of hate, and to know of their higher self and lower self. This is the uniting of the Holy Quran of Mecca for the teaching and instructing of all Moorish Americans, etc. Chapter 1, the creation and fall of man. Time never was when man was not. If life of man at any time began, a time would come when it would end. The thoughts of Allah cannot be circumscribed. No finite mind can comprehend things infinite. All finite things are subject to change. All finite things will cease to be because there was a time when they were not. The bodies and the souls of men are finite things, and they will change. Yea, from the finite point of view, the time will come when they will be no more. But man himself is not the body nor the soul. He is a spirit and a part of Allah. Creative fate gave to spirit man, a soul that he might function on the plane of soul. Gave him a body of flesh that he might function on the plane of things made manifest. Why did creative fate give to spirit man a soul that he might function on the plane of soul? Why did creative fate give to soul a body of the flesh that he might function on the plane of things that are made manifest? Hear ye now, cherubim, ye seraphim, ye angels, and ye men. Hear now, O protoplast, and earth, and plant, and beast. Hear now, ye creeping things of earth, ye fish that swim, ye birds that fly. Hear now, ye winds that blow, ye thunders and ye lightnings of the sky. Hear now, ye spirits of the fire, of water, of earth and air. Hear now, O everything that is, or was, or evermore to be. For wisdom speaks from out of the highest plane of spirit life. Man is the thought of Allah. All thoughts of Allah are infinite. They are not measured up by time, for things that are concerned with time begin and end. The thoughts of Allah are the everlasting of the past into the never-ending days to come. And so is man, the spirit man. But man, like every other thought of Allah, was but a seed that held within itself the potencies of Allah, just as the seed of any plant of earth holds deep within itself the attributes of every part of that especial plant. So spirit man, a seed of Allah, held deep within himself the attributes of every part of Allah. Now seeds are perfect, yea, as perfect as the source from which they come, but they are not unfolded into life made manifest. The child is as perfect as the mother is. So man, the seed, must be deep planted in a soil that he might grow, unfold, as does the bud unfold to show the flower. The human seed that came forth from the heart of Allah was foreordained to be the Lord of the plane of soul and of the plane of things made manifest. So Allah, the husbandman of everything that is, threw forth his human seed into the soil of soul. It grew apace, and man became a living soul, and he became the Lord of all the kingdom of the soul. Hark now, let every creature hear. The plane of soul is but the ether of the spirit plane, vibrating not so fast. And in the slower rhythm of the planes of this plane, the essences of life are manifest. The perfumes and the odors and the true sensations and the all of love are manifest. And these soul attributes became a body beautiful. A multitude of lessons man must learn upon the plane of soul, and here he tarries many ages until his lessons are all learned. Upon the boundary of the plane of soul, the ether began to vibrate slower still, and then the essences took on a final garb. The perfumes and the odors and the true sensations and all of love were clothed in flesh, and man was clothed in flesh. Perfected man must pass through all the ways of life, and so a carnal nature was full manifest, a nature that sprang forth from fleshly things. Without a foe, a soldier never knows his strength, and thought must be developed by the exercise of strength. And so this carnal nature soon became a foe that man must fight, that he might be the strength of Allah made manifest. Let every living thing stand still and hear. Man is the Lord of all the plane of manifest, of protoplast, of mineral, of plant, of beast, but he gave up his birthrights just to gratify his lower self. But man will regain his lost estate, his heritage, but he must do it in a conflict that cannot be told in words. Yea, he must suffer trials and tribulation and temptations, manifold. But let him know that cherubim and seraphim that rule the stations of the sun and spirit of the mighty Allah, who rule the solar stars, are his protectors and his guide, and they will lead to victory. Man will be fully saved, redeemed, perfected by the things he suffers on the plane of flesh and on the plane of soul. And when man has conquered carnal things, his garb of flesh will then have served its purpose well, and it will fall, will be no more. Then he will stand untrammeled on the plane of soul, where he must full complete his victories. Unnumbered foes will stand before man upon the plane of soul. These he must overcome, yea, overcome them every one. Thus hope will ever be his beacon light, and there is no failure for the human soul, for Allah's leading on and victory is sure. Man cannot die, the spirit man is one with Allah. While Allah lives, man cannot die. When man has conquered every foe upon the plane of soul, the seed will have fully opened out, and have unfolded in the holy breath. The garb of soul will then have served its purpose well, and man will need it nevermore, and it will pass and be no more. and man will then attain unto the blessedness of perfectness and be at one with Allah. Now, when you read chapter 1, look at it from a metaphysical point of view, from a spirit view, and from a metaphysic or metaphysical point of view, dealing with the concept of the operations of nature, as most of you who are true religious scholars know the law of correspondence. And of course, the law of correspondence is represented in the ancient Canaanite Moabite nation by Hex Alpha, which you know as the star with the pyramid up and a pyramid down in balance, with a graphic that we would call also the Shield of Solomon or Solomon's seal. Also, some people refer to Hex Alpha as the Star of Dawood or Dawood Star. And that would be your six-pointed star. And so that star, six-pointed star, is the star of Saba of Africa, or that would be called the Sabian Moabite star or the Coptic star, and also known social politically as the emblem or the insignia of the Moorish nation. And so the six-pointed star and the five-pointed star are both key to the culture of the Sabian Moors, etc., where you get logically Saba, and the knowledge and of course the culture being maintained is called keeping the Sabbath. And of course that would be the cycle systems of measurement, the cycle systems of cosmology, the cycle systems of the measurement of chronology, and of course collectively the energies of the seven major ruling planets in this particular solar system, and of course the measurement by what we call the sidereal transits of the sun, which we would call the 7 days. And this is where you get essentially the symbol or the graphic that you see called circle 7. And so Moors measure time by cycles. And of course, when you're dealing with the cycles, or what we call the pathways on the transits of the major planets behind the sun, and of course the sun's transit around another sun that you do not see, we call that, of course, all cycles. And much of the culture has to do with the ephemerides, measurement, calculations, and registry for the point of reference of those planetary movements, particularly the sun and those cycles, etc. So all of that collectively together is circle 7, and not just the image of the graphics that you see circle 7. And when you see the 4 openings of the circle 7, and with the circle without the 7 in it as a graphic, it would be called a nimbus. And dealing with the knowledge and the philosophies of the ancient ones, it would usually be symbolically set as a crown on the head, the sun crown, etc. And from a geographical, social, philosophical, and then a symbolic structural form, then you would see the fez with its 4 circles, 4 sets of 3 circles at the top of the crown of the fez, with the umbilical cord and the cord coming out of it, and of course the ball of mud called earth, and with all the strands symbolizing with a proper tassel 360 strands, and then you have the strands being loosely or able to evolve or revolve around the crown, which would be circular, of the fez. And this is symbolically the crown of the sun, or corona sol, also symbolic of the universe. And of course, the head that you put the fez on has 7 openings: 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, 1 mouth in that circle. And so with the head having 7 chambers. And so you also deal with the senses of the body for the experience of man in the physical form. And so you have your 5 senses, and then you have your 6th and 7th sense, would be called insight and intuition. And collectively, together, they would formulate a what you would call a single seeing, or what you would call a divine seeing. And this is where your philosophies of the intuitive mind relative to griots, seers, prophets, etc., psychics, um, intuitives, that's what that is representative of symbolically. And of course, that those are natural functions of humanity. But for the reality of it, of our condition, those senses have been pretty much artificially suppressed by the priesthood, so that man might have some experiences here in the physical plane. Also, on the problematic side, you've had the priesthood being using that knowledge negatively and locking the masses out of the knowledge in general. And this is where you get the structures and the formulations of your secret societies. And of course, with all the darkness that many of the priesthood have been entertaining themselves with for quite some time, have really made Midgard quite an uncomfortable place to be. When you look at some of the scriptures and the projections of the enlightened mothers, or what you'll call, some would call them angelic women, who would bring men and women at different times and cycles to help ease the pain and the miseries of humanity. The people would call them prophets. And some who would look at it from another philosophical position would call them champions. However, one of the things that has always been the messages from all of those who have been akin or willing to accept their intuitive mind and actually look at these things, know that those capacities demonstrated by all those that we call seers, griots, intuitives, and prophets, is the capacities and the nature of all humans, period. It's in them already. However, due to the fact that the priesthood, much of the priesthood at Midgard, have been dirty and very selfish, the masses in general have not been aware of these things about themselves. And also, many of them have succumbed to the dogmatic psycho systems set up by the priesthood, so that they could make for themselves a comfortable and profitable platform of governing on the earth. This would be for those who have been used to using the Bible as a reference. You would go to Thessalonians 1 and 2, and these are the priests who have claimed themselves as being God. And this is pretty much what's been going on the planet. But also know that much of the work of Prophet Noble Ali has been to bring remedy to humanity, to begin much of this necessary ongoing work of helping to uplift fallen humanity. And chapter 1, if you'll notice, those who have the Circle 7 Quran will notice that chapter 1 of the Circle 7 Quran is the only chapter that is not enumerated. For those who have insight, then that would be obvious, because the message begins with the first chapter, and also in many ways ends with the first chapter. And many of the other chapters are certainly helpful philosophically and as far as our development is concerned. But I emphasize chapter 1 because it gives you past, present, and future. And I noticed that over the years, talking to different people, many people haven't noticed that. So I just brought that to your attention. And it's called Creation and Fall of Man. But when you look at it, it's talking about man's preset experience here at Midgard, etc., and the potential of the outcome, etc. And so that would be a source for both strength and trust in the principles of your ancient mothers and fathers, and that they were not totally without what you would call psychic weapons or psychic knowledge of how things operate. And people who are not aware of the culture logically would, many of them would become forlorn and think or that they had no remedies to the everyday lives or that they suffer at Midgard due to the priesthood, particularly the priesthood who have veiled themselves as politicians, who have been really extremely demonic, etc., while pretending to be peacemakers, peace bringers, peacekeepers, etc., which is pretty much opposite of what they actually been doing. And so I wanted to bring that to your attention with chapter 1, so that many of you who happen to have Circle 7 don't get caught in the dogmatic, spooky perspective that's often cast by many people who really haven't studied well the literature shared with us by our illustrious prophet, as well as many who have systematically misrepresented the prophet for their own personal gain, etc. So you can look beyond that and recognize that it's universal in its character. And also recognize, also I want to bring this to your attention because a lot of people miss this in the chapter, because as those who have been studying and who really have been studying the culture or the Sabian culture know that the root foundations of religions on the planet are cosmological in their character. And of course, for children, we already know, we've discussed multiple times the anthropomorphic presentment for the purpose of teaching children. And however, what you find is, and this is redundant, that many of the priesthood have maintained the anthropomorphic angle and kept the people actually stagnated for their own personal purposes. And this has much to do with helping to uplift fallen humanity by making them aware of the anthropomorphic angle, not for the point of rejecting it, but for the point of comprehending that it was a tool for children, not for adults. So what we would call adults. So when you become more mature about the realities of life, you would be better able and willing to look at the workings of nature realistically and pragmatically and adjust your life accordingly and responsibly. This would be demonstrated with the statement where it says, when I was a child. And how would you make that statement so many times, Dr. Naila, where it would make the statement, when I was a child, I thought as a child, did the things that children do.
Understood as a child.
Yes.
But when I became, a man or mature, I put away childish things.
Yes, and that principle, what you discover, is repeated many times, but has not been the practice, because the people had not been made aware that has to do with dismissing the anthropomorphic angle of instructing, and then taking the people to the science. So when people talk about more science, very often you won't see them being explained to them that more science is cosmology and the workings of nature. It is metaphysical. As a matter of fact, Noble Drew Ali was referred to as the great Egyptian metaphysician. That's a fact, and they also refer to him as Professor Drew. That's no secret, but what I recognize, unfortunately, with many people who are cognate of Noble Drew Ali's teachings and philosophies, many people have not been, and they have sometimes pigeonholed him in the dogmatic concept, which is not to their advantage. If they would study much that he has shared with us, they would take a totally different view and recognize the great sacrifices and the great length by which he took at personal risk to bring a lot of this information to the people. And ultimately, like many of the prophets before him, was sacrificed, or assassinated. However, those many of the people have taken the teachings and actually taken them out, or instructed people in such manners to bring them back to the Sabian culture, so that they could apply the knowledge as opposed to just repeating things because they heard somebody say things. And of course, those who have less than genuine intent for helping the people would immediately get upset because they really don't want humanity liberated. They don't want humanity to recognize their own capacities. And so when you even look at the questionnaire that the prophet has prepared for the people, where he says, how did the prophet begin to uplift the Moorish Americans? And the response is, the answer is by teaching them to be themselves. And logically, if the Moors aren't availed on some of the culture of the ancient Sabian Moors, the great Gnostics, who are the founders of religion, they hear those phrases and those terms. They hear a lot of people in all the nations of the earth talking about, the ancient Gnostics being the founders of religion, etc., but not give them the Gnostic philosophies by which to measure all of the different religious so-called systems that came out of it, and therefore get caught up in the schism operations of the priesthood, where they have practiced keeping people divided against each other, angry at each other, and competing with their different versions of gods, etc., dealing with the different names that have been used by the different people from the different family groups in different linguistic forms, but at the same time admitting that we have source, or what you call common source, etc. And so chapter 1 will help a lot of people to dispel the misconceptions that the Quran in its principle is not universal, because in fact it absolutely is. And it was prepared, the prophet prepared it, because he said, as he said, this knowledge has always been around. It's been held back from the Asiatics of North America. And what he did, he prepared chosen text for our people to aid particularly the Moors of North America, who have been pretty much the deepest into darkness relative to social, economic, political, educational, in every walk of life. Yet they are the direct descendants of those ancient Sabian Moors, etc. So that's one of the motivations of me sharing chapter 1. Also, because as I made the comment earlier, I brought that up in our last visit when you shared with us here at the House of Reawakening Minds the last time, the past, present, and future being in chapter 1, although it's referred to as the creation and fall of man. There were some other things that we were talking about too, Dr. Naila, earlier concerning that, and if you had any comments on that you wanted to share, do so.
I'm just going to see if there are any questions or anything.
Good.
Okay.
And one of the things I also did, years ago, when I got the quote Circle 7 Quran, because years ago I had gotten a copy from Doria Bay, Prime Minister Doria Bay, who's is Prime Minister now. Years ago, she shared hers with me, and just before I'd gotten that, when I visited, when I used to do contracting on a regular basis, a brother shared with me some of the literature from CMB registered in the Library of Congress, which I knew of, and I got some of the original text, etc. It was very interesting. Of course, as soon as I saw it, I just fell right into it because it's harmonic with your nature. If you're harmonic with nature, it falls right in, almost like those old pair of loafers type thing. So and I thought I'd share that with you all because I see as people talk, they're I see a lot of times people get confused, and I think um, even over the years, one of the reasons why I've always more or less leaned towards looking at scripture from a metaphysic point of view is because I find that so many people are still lost in the anthropomorphic view. So that's always been an angle that I've used to try to dissuade people from getting buried into the schismata that's designed by the priesthood with the anthropomorphic view as a mind control tool, which is why you don't see me pumping, that religious mentality, not because I'm not religious, because what they've been pumping in the name of religion wasn't religion, it was mind control. And so I wanted to share chapter 1 with you because if a being has an open mind, you can see it because it's even telling you what the culture is. It's literally telling you what the culture is. And it's telling you the fundamentals, operations of the physical man and the soul man, so that your concepts of what you'll call staged or just above and below correspondence, as you know, the rule in phenomena that operates on the earth, the rule of correspondence in Hermetic law is as above, so below. So as above, so below. So you have your Trinity up and your Trinity down in balance, which is hex alpha. And of course, there's a philosophy concerning that too. And those of you who know the culture know that these people, particularly in North America, Asiatic African descent, who have been suffering multiple levels of abuse you name the area of social society, and they have suffered it. However, many of them don't know that they're descendants of the ancient Sabians. They'll hear the word people saying Jew all the time, Hebrew and Jew, in reference to Saba, but they won't tell you it's Saba, and they won't tell you that Hebrew and Jew is a cover up for the Sabian wars, etc. So, and many of the people who study and study well, who already know that that Islam as a particular point of view is just simply a Coptic sect of Coptic Christianity of the ancient Sabian Moors. And so even people's concept of Islam and Christianity, for the most part, has been actually misrepresented by many people on many fronts. So once in a while, I'll mention that to people so they don't get caught up in that schism operations of thinking that they're more special than someone else, or that someone else is more special than they are. Because all of it has one root that has the same root, so that you don't get caught in the schisms. And also, this is comprehend why the prophet always said to the Moors, you must learn to love instead of hate, because one of the tools of the priesthood has always been keeping people challenging each other and rejecting each other based on whether they're Muslim, claim to be Muslim, Christian, Jew, or Confucius, etc. And for those who studied, you'll notice that he has all of that on your nationality card, because all of it is Sabian culture, because that's the truth. So I wanted to bring chapter 1 up to you to remove that argument that you see many people have, or create those schisms and divisionisms based on their misconceptions of the Circle 7 Quran and the misconceptions of even some of the angles on how we've been sharing the information and why certain angles we've used over the years to share this information, contrary to the anthropomorphic angle. It's not a rejection of people who are locked into the anthropomorphic angle. It is just to explain to them what it is, and then show you some proof within the Circle 7 Quran for those who have been only looking at it from an anthropomorphic perspective. It is not limited to that. Let's know that.
Question. Alan Cartwright asks, says, connecting the dots. Is that the reason why, or at least one of the reasons, the dark priesthood are hostile towards children, because they know somewhere, somehow, a champion can be summoned?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely correct. Glad you were using your insight. You know when you answered. You knew when you asked it. But I'm glad that you asked the question to share for many who, one, in their heart know that to be true, but don't have the courage to ask that question or even to make that statement. And it's absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. Just two things, because many of the children, and particularly now, and this is particular for this energy time now, and this goes with the planes of life that you see mentioned in the Quran. So the planes of life are actually dimensions. So the cognizance of the human, as the human evolves within the energies of the cycles of the sun and the moon, a lot of these sensories will develop just like a flower. That's why it gives you the demonstration of the workings of nature in chapter 1. And he wants to shut them down before they awaken, because many of them are champions being brought to solve some of the problems at Midgard. And so this is why they want to kill them off. As a matter of fact, for many of you who probably never put it together, that's what the operations of Roe versus Wade was actually about. That was set up by the priesthood so they could kill off the children under the guise of helping women. And of course, many women who really haven't been using their divine mind fell for it and helped in the genociding of their own children, who also have been used for food. That's another part of the problems that we're dealing with today. And that's the truth. Thank you for that question and statement.
Comments.
And I'm appreciative that some of the people are beginning to demonstrate the courage to really ask the uncomfortable questions and make the uncomfortable truth statements that are necessary for helping to uplift fallen humanity. Thank you for that.
So, Jacaro Bilcaro asks, when is Kamala going to become pastor of the dead U.S. corporation?
She's already been that.
That's what someone else says. It's safe to assume she already is.
Yes. And that whole platform, while we discuss those platforms are really marking time for them, and also distraction. However, still a good analysis, because that which is above is below. And so they're doing what you call a minor puppet show of what's taking place in the ethereal world. And that's the truth.
Let's talk a little bit about, we were watching yesterday a press conference in it's supposed to be taking place in Geneva, and all of the inconsistencies of the press conference with the so-called head of the corporation that we saw in the place that this press conference was being held. I mean, and you pointed out.
Oh yeah. Oh, the background.
Not only did we realize it was probably green screen, a video green screen in the back, but there were so many inconsistencies in what was running, that you would never see with a person of his caliber. Those
part of the puppet show
breaches, if you will, in security, if it actually was happening.
Part of the puppet show. And most of you who respect your divine mind and who have been using your insight and your intuitive principles of your 7 hermetic laws already knew, which is why we've told you like 3 years ago, basically Trump was assigned. And those who could see it then and see it now. What you see, what we told you then is manifesting now. And he himself is still a figurehead.
At some level. Another question. Want to know what you think about the Juneteenth ritual?
Another diversion and distraction. Most everything that they have presented to pacify our people, to think they're giving them something or that they're honoring them in any kind of manner, is really to distract us. And usually when they have big affairs like that, particularly when they're putting people together, in the background, there's usually some heavy human trafficking activity taking place. And that's the real truth.
Now, you know that
And
they
if
made
they
it.
really wanted to help the people, they would start off telling them the truth. Tell them about the land, the truth about the land, the truth about their corporation and their operations is a private corporation owned by the Jesuits, operated through the Roman Curia, controlled jurisdictionally by the members of the crown known as the Circle Church and Chancery, which is your entire bar association members who are foot soldiers for the Bishopric of Rome, and operating with the artificial construct of the impersonating queen in their Trinity operations to turn everything that was Saba, into a dark ritual. And actually at the same time doing opposite absolute of what they project. And this is why we've been telling people for years, everything that they do, generally look at the fact that they're projecting. Keep that in mind. And whenever you're measuring what they do, always think impersonation, perpetration, de facto, semblance, simulacrum, prima facie, fakery, mockery, mummers, etc. Because that's how they operate. And for the most part, if you keep that in mind as a measurement, you can mostly see through everything that they're doing even before they start to do it.
Let's see, another question. Where's a comment? Mercedes Dickinson said the Library of Congress and the Smithsonian are closed.
Well, what does that tell you? The seat of the Roman goddess at the Maghreb, or the throne of the darkness pretending to be light, has been for the most part and is still being dismantled, which we told you about 4 years ago. Because remember, those of you who know about the Organic Act of Congress 1871, and of course the coup d'etat that took place 10 years before, has to do with much of the root foundation of the politics that has been taking place since the 1800s, perpetrated at North America and then projected out upon the rest of the civilized world. And so what you see, it's being dismantled, which we told you was happening under Trump.
Okay. Kiba Omar says, what is the remedy or / plan to quote unquote unite the various tribes?
The various tribes will be united. We've said this for years, and I'm going to repeat what I've said. The Moors will come together not because men and women have not been sacrificing their personal lives to try to waken them up or to try to share truths with them. They will not come together for a lack of actual knowledge altogether. They're going to come together out of pain, because the hybrid European, the impersonator, the fakery, the fake Jew will show them everything they need to know, because they're going to take every damn thing from you till you turn your hearts back to your ancient mothers and fathers and stop pretending that you all don't know your Moors. There it is. That's simple.
But Grand Sheik, there is there's so many
The remedies. Let me come back with this.
Yeah, but there's
The
so many
remedies in
factions.
you.
Yeah, but there's so many
Of course
factions
there is. Of course there
that are
is.
coming up with, I got the truth. No,
course
I have
there
the
is.
truth.
Of
No, we
course
have
there
the
is.
truth.
Isn't that part of the
They
game?
don't have the truth. But
Isn't
everybody
that part of
has
the game?
a piece of.
Isn't that part of the game? What is it one thing that we've always told the people? Have we ever told the people that we had all the answers, or did we always tell the people to trust themselves? And we give them established truths, established documents, established facts to encourage them to start rejecting the priesthood and the agencies that they thought was legitimate government, so that they would recognize for themselves that these demons and these powers and these fakers around them had no power except what you keep giving them. So you've been feeding them the energy to create weapons to destroy yourselves. So when you stop feeding the fake platforms, the fake religions, the fake philosophers, the fake leader guys, etc., they have no power because they're all parasitic. We told you multiple times that they're all parasites. So if you stop feeding the vampire, you start wearing turtleneck sweaters, you can walk in most caves and you come out pretty cool. Just don't wear low neck sweaters when you go in the cave in the darkness with these people. After a while, Vampy gets kind of weak when he don't have plasma. They don't call exploiters vampires for nothing. If you look in the dictionary, vampirism and exploitation, vampirism is a synonym of exploiter. That's why they're also referred to as bloodsuckers. And when you think that they haven't been bloodsuckers, you've underestimated them. And I think now many people around the world are beginning to recognize that that's not a metaphorical statement, but it has been actually both metaphorical and literal. This is the kind of pain that it's going to take to wake up humanity, because they keep believing the priesthood, and the priesthood, the collective body of priesthood, has been the demon, has been the Satan. Nobody wanted to accept that when we've been telling them this for years about the full pit. They defended them. You're going to find out a lot of people that you've trusted in the name of the Lord, like we always like to say. Get your heads together and, drink a lot of good water, eat good food, because you're going to have to handle a lot of ugly that's going to be exposed to you on multiple levels. But we don't have to do it because we don't want to deal with that energy. We'll let the hybrid European do it. Like the prophet said, I'm going to make the European tell you the truth. So pay attention to your radios and to your televisions, all these different levels of social media, and they will tell you everything except some of the most important parts, which you're going to have to figure out yourselves. But if you think it's going to be hidden, no, it's not. However, the more you comprehend about what's really going on, the more you can stay out of the way of the herd as they run over a cliff. Don't follow the herd. That's my advice to you.
How more people on that attention? I can go back and see if there. Okay. LY, it says, wasn't sure if this was already covered, but why is the number 7 so significant to Moorish science?
Because it is more science. But when you're talking about 7, you're talking about this particular solar system. So it's Moorish science just happens to be the fact that it's Moorish culture, but it actually involves all humanity. So don't look at it as being separate just because someone says a Muslim, Christian, Jew, Buddhist or atheist. It matters not. If you're in physicality in this atmosphere at Midgard, Circle 7 is the Earth culture. Whether or not beings are aware of that, or cognitively, is another issue. And so you're dealing with the 7 ruling planets of this particular solar system, and it has more to do with also planets that you call the human have actually been on. Now that's the truth. The concept that humanity only dwells at Midgard is a misconception. These are other discomforting things to the average person who really doesn't know the walk of man that's going to be exposed to you in the very near future. And so a lot of what we would consider or what you're being told is new technology is actually old technology. And for the most part, a lot of it will be brought back to you because we have to clean up, and they can't continue to play these games of suppression by necessity of development. And of course, because the energy of the transits of the sun and the transits of these 7 planets within and through the Futon belt. So do some research on the Futon belt. The energy that's hitting the planet now will not allow the darkness to continue anyway. So it's not because of someone's philosophy merely, or our discomfort, or we're angry that the demons did this or the demons did the other thing. The deal of it is that their BS Kedorf can't exist under the Aquarian energy lights anyway. So you're talking about the forces of nature. So when you're talking about Circle 7, you're talking about the 7 senses, but they only told you about 5. We're not arguing that. We told you about the other 2. Not that you didn't know it. We're just bringing it together. So look at the chamber of the head, etc., because it's going to come to you anyway. So people with big mouths like me won't even matter because it's going to come to you by nature, and that's the truth. So I'm giving you a little bit, but you'll recognize it on your own values now. And it's sort of like some of the things we talk about is sometimes we get boring doing it because it's sort of like, like you're talking about a coming storm, and now you're still having a conversation and you're in the storm. Well, we're in the storm. And it's sort of like that. So we're trying to find different angles to wake up the few who aren't woke because of love and because we want to make things better for all of us. Because what we project for the rest of those who are less asleep, we project for ourselves. So even love, in a way, while selfless, is also selfish. So if you love others as you love yourself, it's because we all are one. And so when you look at even the closeout of the Quran, it says what? This is the uniting of Allah. This is the uniting of the Holy Quran of Mecca. But the Holy Quran is not just the book. The Holy Quran is the reading, the knowledge. It is the collective. Even that's a metaphor, you see. It is the whole of things, actually. And this is again why a lot of times so that people will take a less spooky view or not a view that's loaded with biases. We would always tell them, if you want to have really concepts of it, study cosmology, study Kabbalion, which is derived from Sabbath culture, directly derived from Gnostic philosophy, because that's what it really is.
Okay, here's an interesting question. What is the link of summer solstice to Father's Day?
Well, now you would be talking, that would be anthropomorphic in its angle, talking about the sun. And so the sun is also the father. So you're really talking about mother, governed by the moon, who's the gateway, who brings the physical body. And you're talking about the projective energies of the sun. And this is like when you're looking at cosmology, they would give the sun what you would call a masculine energy or projection, just like you have, although all things in nature have masculine and feminine energy. And so the sun is symbolically as he. This is why the sun, or the great sun, is referred to as he. And the moon is referred to as she. Is given is given a gender. So even when you look in your Hermetic law, you're dealing with the law of gender. So you're talking about the projection and the positive and the negative, the projective and the recessive, the receiving and the giving, etc. The balance, the yin and the yang. That's all that means. And so when you're dealing with the energy of the summer solstice, the sun coming in or being at the part of the earth where it is most active, then that, of course, deals with Ptah, Peter or Father. That's what it means. That's all. It's only a metaphorical angle on the workings of nature. Back to cosmology. And of course, those of you who know, when you look at even the word cosmo in cosmology, cosmos means universe. So who is Allah? Allah, the follower of the universe. Allah is the follower of the universe. We know that Allah is a feminine name. So you're dealing with projection and energy and gestation and projection. So you're looking at the workings of nature. And so you have the crescent and the star, which is also called the cosmos. You see how the storyline is? And so when people look at it just from an anthropomorphic, they're not looking necessarily as the cosmological nature or the Femirides angle. And people need to know about both of them so they can look at it more maturely and more responsibly and comprehend that for children, we'll show them, a brother on a camel, which means a ship of the desert. And then you'll see a pyramid in the background, and then you'll see the crescent and the star in the sky, and they'll say, "Oh, the Star of Bethlehem," etc. So, but adult will look at a chart and look at the angles of the different planets, and also from a bishop point of view, the positions of the different planets in aid or support of the different constellations at certain cycles of time. So there you got your bishops. And there you have what? Your cardinal points. So your cardinal in the great circle, because church means circle. So the great cardinals would be at your primal nodal points, your north node, south node, east and west. There you go. And so you take it out of its anthropomorphic, which is for children, take it into its cosmological, and now you're grown up. Now, you talk about Santa Claus, but you already know Santa Claus is the Big Dipper.